In the stillness of the early morning, when the world is asleep and the darkness feels like a heavy blanket, there exists a peculiar kind of silence that often stirs something deeper within us. Perhaps you've found yourself awake at this hour, between 3 and 4 in the morning, when everything is quiet, yet the mind races, and the soul seems to be pulled into a reflection of sorts. It's a time when the thoughts that usually get drowned out by the busyness of the day come rushing forth, and there's something about the solitude of the moment that brings forth a sense of both peace and disquiet. This is the time, if you ever wake, that you can take advantage of for 3 very profound and simple practices. The first thing you can do in such moments of awakening is to simply be still. Now, when I say be still, I don't mean to passively wait for the moment to pass. I'm not suggesting that you lie there counting sheep or praying for sleep to return. I mean that you allow yourself, for just a few minutes, to rest in the very quietness of the night. This is a time when your body might still feel heavy with the weight of sleep, and your mind is caught between the world of dreams and the world of wakefulness. You might find it uncomfortable at first. There's something unsettling about stillness. We are creatures who constantly seek to fill silence with noise, be it in our thoughts, in our actions, or in the endless distractions of the world around us. But when we choose to be still in the quiet of the early morning, we begin to confront something much more profound than any external sound or disturbance. In that stillness, we confront ourselves. The rest of the world is far away, and what we're left with is the raw, unfiltered reality of our own thoughts. It is in this space, where there's no rush and no need to act, that we can begin to hear our own hearts more clearly. We can ask ourselves what we're truly feeling, what our day's tasks will bring, what questions linger in our minds from the hours before. Often, we're too busy to listen, to hear the whispers of our hearts or the subtle stirrings of our thoughts. In the early hours when the world is still, it is a chance to listen to your soul. And in listening, we often find that what we thought were complex or unsolvable issues in our lives might, in fact, be far simpler than we once imagined. Once you've allowed yourself this space of stillness, the second thing you should do is express gratitude. In the depth of the night, when everything is peaceful, it is all too easy to succumb to the temptation of worry or regret. Our minds, when left to wander in solitude, may bring forth memories of what we have lost or fears of what we might still lose. But instead of allowing these thoughts to carry us away, why not take a moment to center ourselves in gratitude? It's a choice, a deliberate action of focusing on the good, even when the world feels uncertain or full of shadows. Gratitude is one of the simplest yet most profound practices we can adopt, and perhaps it's most effective in moments of darkness. In the quiet of the night, when everything feels still, you can begin to reflect on what is good in your life, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. Perhaps it's the warmth of the bed you lie in, the soft comfort of a loved one beside you, or the simple miracle of waking up, breathing in the air of another day. The act of giving thanks, even for the simplest of things, reorients our perspective. It pulls us away from the darkness of worry and places us in the light of appreciation. It is often said that gratitude is the antidote to discontentment, and how true this is when we stop to consider it. How often do we dwell on the things we do not have, on the paths we did not take, on the opportunities we missed? But in the stillness of the early hours, when you intentionally express gratitude, you shift your focus away from the empty spaces in your life and begin to see the fullness that already exists. It's as though you begin to open your eyes to what was always there, but which had gone unnoticed in the rush of the day. The third practice, and perhaps the most difficult yet most rewarding of all, is to surrender the day's burdens. When you wake up at this hour, you may feel a weight upon your chest, the weight of the world's demands, the weight of unresolved matters, the burdens of things left undone. Your mind may rush through lists of to-dos or replay conversations and decisions that are lingering in your thoughts. Yet, in this early morning silence, it is important to remember that not every burden is meant to be carried alone, and not every task is yours to resolve immediately. Surrendering doesn't mean giving up or resigning yourself to a helpless fate. Rather, it means recognizing that some things are beyond your control at this moment. There is a beauty in acknowledging that we cannot fix everything in a single night, nor should we feel the need to. When we surrender, we allow ourselves to relinquish the illusion of control and trust that, when the time is right, the next steps will reveal themselves. Surrendering is an act of courage, for it requires vulnerability. It is admitting that we do not hold the answers to every question and that some things are in the hands of forces greater than ourselves. This surrender, however, is not a defeat. On the contrary, it is the recognition that we are not alone in our struggles, and that there is a rhythm to life that we must trust, a rhythm that does not demand we act in every moment. In the quiet between 3 and 4 a.m., surrendering can feel like an embrace of peace. It is acknowledging that the world does not require you to solve everything tonight, and that, in the morning, with the first light of dawn, there will be new strength, new clarity, and new grace to continue your journey. You do not need to bear the weight of the world on your shoulders all at once. These 3 practices, stillness, gratitude, and surrender, are not just ways to pass the time when the world is asleep. They are ways to shape the heart, to nourish the soul, and to prepare the spirit for what lies ahead in the coming day. It is in those early hours of the morning, when the world is hushed and everything feels as though it is holding its breath, that we have the opportunity to slow down and be reminded of the deeper truths of our existence. When you wake between 3 and 4 a.m., do not fear the quiet. Embrace it. Let it guide you into stillness, into gratitude, and into surrender. For it is in those moments, those sacred moments of the early morning, that we often discover the deepest wells of peace and understanding, waiting to be tapped into, not in the noise of the day, but in the silence of the night. As the stillness of the early morning envelops you, there is a unique kind of intimacy with yourself, a connection to the present moment that is rarely felt when the demands of the day take over. The world around you might remain shrouded in darkness, but it is in this very darkness that clarity can often emerge. How often do we rush through the day, caught up in the noise and the distractions, never allowing ourselves to pause and truly be? We chase after one thing after another, never giving ourselves the space to reflect, to sit with our own thoughts, or to experience the depth of quiet that holds everything together. But in the stillness between 3 and 4 in the morning, that space is available to us. It's almost as if the universe holds its breath, waiting for us to notice the small yet profound details that often slip by unnoticed. The very act of being still, of choosing to embrace the silence rather than fight it, allows us to see the world around us differently. It is not a mere pause in our busy lives. It is an opportunity to rediscover the importance of presence. And this presence, the ability to truly be in the moment, is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. It is in these moments of quiet reflection that we are most in touch with the essence of who we are. Here, the noise of the world, the pressures of expectation, the constant buzz of activity all fall away. What remains is a simple truth. You are enough. You are whole in your stillness. You do not need to prove anything. There is no rush, there is no deadline to meet in this moment. In that quiet, you are simply a person, existing as you are, and that is enough. This brings us back to gratitude, a gratitude not only for the external things that bring us comfort, but for the very experience of being alive. How often do we take for granted the fact that we are here, breathing, thinking, feeling? We tend to place importance on our achievements, on the things we have, but we forget to appreciate the intangible gifts that life offers us in abundance. The stillness of the morning reminds us of these gifts. not as an obligation or something we should feel compelled to recognize, but as a simple truth that we often overlook. In this moment, everything is as it should be, and that, in itself, is a gift. The act of gratitude, when practiced in the quiet of the early morning, shifts our focus. It brings us back to the present, away from the fear of what we might face later in the day or the regrets of what we could have done differently yesterday. It places us for a brief moment in a space where everything is just as it needs to be. The subtle shift of moving from a place of scarcity, of wanting, of lacking, to one of abundance, of enoughness, is transformative. And this leads us finally to surrender. To surrender is to acknowledge that there is much in life that is beyond our comprehension and beyond our control. It is to trust that we do not need to hold on to everything, that there is grace to be found in letting go. The practice of surrender is not a resignation to fate, nor is it an avoidance of responsibility. Instead, it is a wise acceptance of the limits of our own capacity. We surrender not because we are weak, but because we are wise enough to know that we cannot do it all alone, nor should we. In the early morning stillness, surrender becomes a deeply peaceful act. It is the surrender to the moment, the trust that you do not have to figure everything out right now. You do not need to fix every problem or answer every question in this instant. The truth is, the answers often come when we stop grasping, when we stop forcing solutions, and allow life to unfold in its own time. Surrendering in this way allows us to trust in the rhythm of life, trusting that everything will come as it should at the right time. It is this quiet surrender that leads to profound peace. When we let go of the need to control, we free ourselves from the chains of anxiety and doubt that bind us during the waking hours of the day. We begin to live with a sense of flow, a recognition that life does not have to be a battle to be won, but a journey to be experienced. And in that journey, we learn that it is the stillness, the gratitude, and the surrender that guide us forward. These practices are not about doing more, but about being more. They invite us to slow down, to be present, to appreciate what we have and to release what we cannot control. They offer us the opportunity to rediscover the peace that lies at the heart of every moment, a peace that is often drowned out by the noise of our lives. The quiet between 3 and 4 a.m. offers us a chance to return to this peace. It is a time to recalibrate, to let go of the burdens of the day and to begin anew. The stillness allows us to hear our own hearts, to listen to our thoughts with greater clarity, to understand the truths that lie beneath the surface of our daily distractions. Gratitude turns our focus from what is missing to what is present, filling us with a sense of abundance, and surrender frees us from the illusion of control, giving us the strength to face whatever comes with grace and wisdom. It is in these early hours that we find an opportunity for renewal, an opportunity to reconnect with ourselves and with the deeper currents of life that often elude us in the rush of day-to-day living. So if you find yourself awake during this sacred hour between 3 and 4 in the morning, do not fear the quiet. Do not resent it. Instead, embrace it, for in this time you are invited to reconnect with the deepest parts of yourself, to embrace stillness, to practice gratitude, and to surrender to the flow of life. These practices, simple yet powerful, hold the potential to transform not just your mornings, but your entire way of being. As we come to the close of this reflection, let us remember that the practices of stillness, gratitude, and surrender are not merely tools for self-improvement or ways to cope with the noise of life. They are deeply rooted in a truth far greater than ourselves, a truth that is revealed in the quiet moments when we open our hearts and minds to God. In the stillness of the early morning, we encounter the presence of Christ. He who often withdrew to quiet places to pray knows the power of silence and solitude. He calls us too to come away with him, to find peace in his embrace, and to listen for his voice in the stillness. It is in the stillness that we can hear the whisper of His love, reminding us that we are never alone, even in our darkest moments. In gratitude, we recognize the countless blessings He has bestowed upon us, even in the midst of trials. Every breath we take, every moment of peace is a gift from a Father who loves us beyond measure. And in surrender, we follow the example of Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, where He prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." It is in surrendering our fears, our burdens, and our control to Him that we find true freedom. For when we lay our lives at the feet of Jesus, we discover that He carries our burdens for us, and in Him we find rest. The quiet between 3 and 4 in the morning is not just a time to reconnect with ourselves, but to draw near to God. It is in those moments of stillness, gratitude, and surrender that we come face to face with the One who gives us peace beyond understanding, the One who has promised to be with us always, even in the quiet hours of the night. As we practice these things, let us remember that they are not simply personal disciplines, but an invitation to deeper communion with Christ. For He is the source of all stillness, all gratitude, and all surrender, and in Him we are made whole. So, may we embrace the quiet hours, not with fear or anxiety, but with hearts full of faith, trusting that in the stillness we find Him. And may our lives, lived in surrender and gratitude, reflect the peace and love that He offers to each of us, now and always. Amen.